Today is an exciting day at Linnea Loves Music because today we're talking about rhythm. I really want to encourage you to take a listen to some of our other videos on learning how to play piano down below. We've covered so much so far. We've talked about piano note names and finger numbers. We've talked about how to read music. We've talked about major and minor scales. We've talked about semitones, whole tones, and harmonic equivalents. We've been talking about sharps and flats and naturals and double sharps, double flats, so many different things. Any of those topics interest you, we have more of that down in the description box below. But now, let's get to rhythm. Here we are with the whiteboard, and we're going to cover some of these rhythms. So for those of you who do know about time signatures, we will be getting into that in a later lesson. Right now, we are going to be assuming that everything is in 4/4, and if you do not know what that means, that is totally fine, because we will be going into time signatures later on, but I wanted to keep the rhythm really, really simple before we complicate it with time signatures, so that will be coming up in a future lesson. Our most common notes come down to the quarter note, which is worth 1 count, the half note, which is worth 2 counts, and the whole note, which is worth 4 counts. After this, we have the notes that are subdivided into smaller notes. We have an 8th note. If it is by itself, the 8th note looks like this. It has a friend. It looks like this. So if there's 2 of them, it looks like this. If it's by itself, this right here is called a flag. If it's 2 of them together, this right here that joins them is called a beam. These are each worth half a beat. So for instance, if I had these right here, together 2 halves would equal half plus half if you're talking about fractions. This together, this one plus this one would equal 1 together, but they're each, those dots are each worth half a beat each. And then we have, here's your 16th note. Your 16th note is worth a quarter. If it has friends, it looks like this. And then we have the 32nd. So the more flags there are, the quicker and faster they are. The 32nd is worth an 8. Of course, if they have friends, there will be 8 of them. That is a whole lot. Now, you can also get, although, I mean, you rarely see this one. I mean, you can go crazy. I mean, you can have also a 64, but I mean, and that is worth a 16th, but when do you ever see that practically? But it does exist, just so you know. You can also get another note that basically takes that quarter note, so it takes that beat, and it divides it, instead of 2 or 4 or 8, it divides it into thirds, and this is called the triplet. And you'll know it's a triplet because it has 3 grouped together instead of 4 or 2, and it has a 3 beside it, and this is called a triplet. So each of these by themselves are worth a third, but of course if you have third plus a third plus a third together, this equals 1. Next, we're going to talk about dotted rhythms. The general rule of if you have a dotted note, so let's say we have this quarter note that is worth 1, and it has a dot, so it's now a dotted quarter note. The way that you find out what a dot is worth is you take the value of it. So the quarter note just by itself is 1, and you times it by 1.5, and you get that this note is worth 1.5. So for instance, if you have a dotted half, 2 times 1.5 equals, this one is worth 3. If you take a dotted whole note, 4 times 1.5 equals 6. If you have a dotted eighth, this is a half times 1.5, you get 0.75 or 3/4. We haven't covered what a dot is worth for every single one of these. You can always figure it out by taking the number that it's originally worth, times it by 1.5, and there you get your answer. So now we're going to go through rest. Now, rest is exactly what it sounds like. So with a note, you'd be playing, and with a rest, you would be taking a rest. So not playing or not singing. So we are going to go through these, and every single note has a rest that is worth the same amount. So I'm just going to show them together side by side. So let's start with our note here. So we have a 30-second note, and the equivalent rest of that would be a 30-second rest. So these are both worth an eighth. You have your eighth rest, eighth note, and eighth rest, which is worth a quarter of a beat. Then you have this one, your eighth note, which is worth half a beat. We have a quarter and a quarter rest worth one, a dotted quarter and quarter rest, which is worth 1.5. We have a half note and a half rest, which looks like a top hat facing upward, like it's sitting on somebody's head. That one's worth 2. A dotted half note and half rest is worth 3. A whole note and whole rest is worth 4. And a dotted whole note and whole rest is worth 6. Now you might be wondering, how do you count? Because counting is really, really important. If you have a 16th note, the way that you would count this is 1 eanda. So 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda. If you have a triplet, it would be counted, think of it like triplet, triplet. You count it 1-a-let, 2-a-let, 3-a-let, 4-a-let. So it'd be 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda, 1-a-let, 2-a-let, 3-a-let, 4-a-let. If you have eighths, they would be counted 1 and. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, of course, your other ones are pretty straightforward. You've got your quarter rest with just like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So if I were counting this, it'd be like, so let's say this was 2, 3, and this was my beat 4. Let's just say it'd be 1 eanda, 2-a-let, 3 and 4. You want to try that with me? Okay, 1 eanda, 2-a-let, 3 and 4. 1 eanda, 2-a-let, 3 and 4. Pretty crazy, huh? I think it would be really helpful, because all of this information can be a lot to absorb, if we just took a little bit of time to write out a few additional rhythms to help us figure out how we would count something. So let's start off first with something very simple. If I were counting this rhythm, I would count it as 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's now try something a little bit more challenging. So you might look at this rhythm and be a little overwhelmed. The way I would count this is 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 E and A, 2, 3, 4. So let's try clapping this one out right now. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and A, 2, 3, 4. Let's try clapping this one out right now. So 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 E and A, 2, 3, 4. So we've done some rhythms clapping that are kind of simple rhythm, some with the dotted. Let's try a little bit of triplet, a little bit more 16th. The way that I would write out this rhythm is 1-a-let, 2 eanda, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4. Let's try clapping out this rhythm. So it goes like this. 1, a let, 2, e, and a 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. One more time. 1, a let, 2, e, and a 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. Good job. So, are you officially overwhelmed with rhythm? I hope not. But it can be a little tricky and it can take a little bit of time. So what I always suggest and always say is only practice makes perfect. So if you would like to take this lesson to the next level, in the description box, I do have a handout that goes along with this lesson that goes through different rhythms that you can use, a little bit of a worksheet to help you learn and take this to the next level. If you liked this video, please make sure to like and comment. I would love if you would comment and let me know what kind of things that you would like to learn on the piano, because that would be super helpful, because I want to make sure that these lessons are catered and very specific to you. So I can only make videos that you're going to like if you tell me what you'd like to hear. So make sure you comment, subscribe, hit the bell notifications for more piano and vocal lessons for your musical adventure.